And I'll walk in the room and say, oh, the needle is pointing in the wrong direction. Just turn the needle the other way. And then the patient will go, oh, and the complexion will come back on their face. And I'll say, yeah, the needle is just pointing in the wrong direction. And they would all come on and say, you're so intuitive. How did you know? And I was like, I'm not intuitive. That is not
me. No, not me.
Not me. Yeah. So it took me a while to even accept that part of myself.
Okay.
Because of that previous experience. And then when I, started working, I found that I had to use that particular gift of intuition, as Carolyn May, she called it medical intuition, to use that particular gift in order to help people heal.
So what is that gift?
Okay. It's the ability to see, it's a gift that's more clairaudient, clairvoyant, and all of these things. If you look at it, in most societies, they have what they call a medicine man or shaman.
Okay, yes.
So that was something that every single society, there's no society that did not have a medicine man or woman or a shaman, or whether they were male or female, they all have that. And that is the person that's able to look at you. In Chinese medicine, they also had a philosophy that they took out when they westernized Chinese medicine, because they had to make it fit the Western model of science, the scientific method. So they took certain parts out of the medicine. And one of the systems that they had in the medicine was called Tong Sheng Min. It means to penetrate divine insight, or, penetrate divine illumination. That's actually what the words mean. So it means that the doctor is able to see with the person, like connect with the person in front of them and see what's really happening with that person. So it's like what the shaman would do, what the medical intuitive would do, what the medicine man would do. And I think
Welcome everyone to another episode of Lanes of Mastery. Tonight I have on a special guest, actually, and I'll let her introduce herself in a second, but actually this person really stood out to me, was really special to me because they were the first person I can remember in a long time. And I listen to a lot of people, but I don't really listen to them in person. And honestly, a lot of people that I've learned from and I'm learning from are not even currently alive. Right. I listen to a lot of Neville Goddard, Dr. Joseph Murphy, a lot of other people, Bob Proctor, and things like that. A lot of different people along my journey. But my point is that this person is very special to me because she was the first person I can remember in a quite a while living that I spoke to directly, who really kind of affected and influenced some of my thoughts and my thinking, and gave me things to think about that I didn't know, or kind of reframe some of my thoughts that when we had a conversation about 2 weeks ago on Twitter, Instagram, I think it was, you just, there's a lot of things that just your history and your passion for learning and all the different things that we'll discuss tonight that I really got a lot from. So I said, wow, okay, when I started this podcast up, I wanted to speak to people who really do something in such a way that it moves me and it sparks and kind of piques my curiosity, and say, how do they do that? What makes them think that way, and things like that. So anyway, that is you. And so with no further ado, I will let my guest introduce herself, a little bit about who she is and what she does, and we'll get on to some questions and get our conversation going.
Okay. So my name is Akyiia Azula, and I have done a lot of things, but right now my primary focus is on a system called creation. And creation is actually one of the fastest transformational healing systems on the planet. Right now, I've worked with a lot of people and I get the same feedback over and over that, oh my goodness, we worked on this, and within either instantaneous to about 44 hours later, whatever they've worked on, they're able to manifest it. So one of the good news, because I think your wife said this isn't something that you're going to air, it's going to record it, and then you'll have an airing date. So by that time, one of the clients I've been working with, after the first Sunday that we did the Creation for Manifesting Miracles, he wrote me this very, very long text saying that he's a businessman. He had a deal going for a substantial amount of money. I think it's somewhere around $15 or $16 million, and it has been stalling. Like the deal just kept getting stuck, and he knew there was something blocking it. He didn't know what it was. He said, "We did that first session with you, and the following morning, less than 24 hours later, he was told that this deal was actually starting to move and go through, even though for months it's been stuck." And then he just wrote me today. He said he had another transaction that he was doing that was for $10 million. That was over a year and a half ago, and nothing was going on with it. And he just got, this is about the 5th time I've worked with him with the Sunday Manifesting Miracles. So he said he just got, the other deal just came through that they tell him that they're going to release those funds, and that was for $10 million. So he just texted me, he said, "Look, I was happy with the 16 million, but now we're getting like 26 million for this other thing." So it's just, for me, it wasn't so much that I had patients that were having problems with healing. It was always a quest for me to find out why they weren't healing. Like I had patients and, they responded to care, whether it was acupuncture, whether it was herbology, whether it was nutrition, even like emotional support type techniques. They responded well to that, but I understood why those particular techniques were working. But the ones that, no matter what you did with them, just couldn't heal, that was my curiosity. So it was always this quest to find out why, things that should work were not working. So it led me down a lot of different paths. And then I started looking at the human being as, we say body, mind, and spirit, and everybody's familiar with those terms. But then I also look at it that you have energetic systems. So in Chinese medicine, you have your meridian system, you have your acupuncture points, that's an energetic system. In Ayurvedic medicine, they have what they call the chakra systems. So that's another energetic system. So even if you look at, if we look at what we call the spirit or the soul, in different traditions, they have different names. Like in the Jewish system, they have like 5 different levels of the soul. In Chinese medicine, you have 5 different aspects of the soul. In Hinduism, there's like 2 aspects of the soul. And even in Christianity, they talk about the soul and the spirit. Sometimes they're interchanged and they mean something else. And, they talk about, in Chinese medicine, they call the Po, or the corporeal soul. That means the soul that's within the body that the breath goes into. So you're alive. And then, that leaves, you die. And, but then there's another aspect, which is like your spirit that lives on and on forever. So even when you look at that, it breaks it down. There's these 2 aspects to it. And so I always find out, well, which level and which part of this human being is not healing. I look at it, is it their physical body? Is it their energetic systems? Is it their soul? Is it their spirit? Is it their mind? Is it their emotion? Is it the environmental factor, what they're in? Are they in a dysfunctional family or home? Is some environmental factor that they need to get away from because that's keeping them from healing? They're in a toxic environment. So, it's like all of those factors I look at, because every one of those things impact your healing. Especially, your belief systems. So if you believe certain things, like I'm talking to someone and they're sick, and I get, you're sick because you have this belief that you're a sinner, which is a kind of odd thing to believe. I could get sick because I believe I'm a sinner. But if you're very, very devout, if you're an extremely devout person, no matter what your religion is, if you feel that you fell short, you will be the judge, the jury, and the executioner of yourself. And so I find that, that I have to kind of talk them down and say, let's really look at whatever your scripture says, whether it's the Bible, whether it's a sutra, whatever it is. Let's take a look at it, especially with Google. Nowadays, you can pull anything up, right?
Right.
What does it actually say? And then when we start to break down what it actually says, they realize, no, that's what society told you. That's probably some cultural thing you were told, but it doesn't actually say that. So if you go by what it actually says, you're okay. You don't have to beat yourself up and be so harsh on yourself that you're making yourself ill because you think you fell short or you sinned or you missed your mark, so to say. So those are the type of things that I do with people, always trying to find out, what is it that's making you sick? Why are you going to every single doctor? You're paying all this money. You've tried every single system and technique out there, and none of them are still working for you. So by the time they come to see me, I always used to call myself the last resort clinic.
Yeah.
You know, it was always when I lived in Orlando, people said, "Oh yeah, if it's something weird, you can't figure out what it is, send them to Akyiia, because it would be something wild and crazy. She'll figure out what it is, and then they'll be okay, and then they could come back." But the key thing wasn't so much that I was interested in keeping that person as a patient for myself. It was that whatever that practitioner was doing with them was a valid treatment based on their symptoms. It just wasn't working because this other thing had them stuck.
Okay.
My thing was always, let's find out what's keeping you stuck. And so that gave the birth to like the system that we call creation, because it's really about what's keeping you stuck in your life, finding out what that is. And a big thing that I find with people is that, let me just back that up because then it'll make more sense when I say this. The very, very first day of acupuncture college, the very, very first thing you learn about is the concept of yin and yang, that little black and white symbol, yin and yang. And then you learn about the Tao, which the Tao means a path. And so you learn about the Tao and yin and yang. And basically it says if you follow the Tao, you will have harmony in your life. If you don't follow the Tao, you'll have chaos, calamity, and disharmony in your life. And then we never ever talk about it ever again. You know, that's like, it's mentioned the first day, never go into it what it means. And then, so when you look at spirituality, especially if you're looking even in Christianity, they speak about that. They speak about, you know, like you're given a certain call and you're given something to do. What happens when you refuse to do that? You know, like the story of Jonah and the whale is a big one. No, I won't do it. I refuse. I won't. You know, that story is telling you, hey, you were given a specific purpose. You're told to do something. You're given something to do. And when you refuse it, you know, the belly of the whale could have been 3 days or 30 years that he spent in this, you know, harshness, you know, for all this time. Until he finally said, okay, I will follow my path. So they're saying basically the same thing. It's two different philosophies, but they're saying the same thing. If you don't follow your path, you will have discord and disharmony and disease, and all of these things will follow you. So though, because of that, I look at, you know, healing a bit different, because a lot of times, one of my favorite authors, her name's Carolyn Mace. She is what you call a medical intuitive. She was the first one that coined that phrase. And she said, the main reason for disease is that the person has lost power. That's the main.
What do you mean by lost power?
They've lost power. Okay. They've lost power somewhere in their life. So if you look at it, let's say you're in a bad marriage. Look at all the things that would do to bring your energy down.
Okay.
So you're losing power somewhere.
Okay.
Let's say you have a horrible diet. You're going to energetically, we know you're going to lose power there. Let's say you are just doing everything you know you're not supposed to be doing. Or maybe you just believe in fear. That will make you lose power. So my goal whenever someone comes to me, that was one of the things I always looked at. Okay, this person has this problem they haven't been able to resolve, because people tell me, I've been here, I've been there, I've tried this, I've tried that. And I say, okay, those are valid things. Why hasn't it worked? And then my key thing is like, where's this person losing power in their life?
Okay.
And when we
Okay.
identify that, then the person will begin to heal because they could identify this is where it's stemming from.
Okay.
Okay.
So I want to, let me just say this. That is why that was one of the things I think I connected with you most on was your search for the actual truth, not necessarily the treatment.
Yeah.
So your search for the truth is what led you to the treatment. You were not, I guess, you were not in bondage to a certain type of treatment. No. You followed, you applied the treatment once you found or after you found the truth. Right. And that's what I meant by like your inquisitiveness. Like I liked the fact that you were looking for like what really makes things happen.
Yes.
I liked that about your journey, and we're definitely going to talk about that. So I want to back up real quick because I wanted to ask you about when you talked to the gentleman and he got the 10 million and the 20 and the 16 million. Right. What did you find was blocking him? Or what did you think it was that you released or let go or help him or open the gate or whatever you did?
Yeah, I really think what was blocking him was a very interesting thing because about not this past week, because you were there, the week before, I was given a message because I would meditate, I would listen. I'm very, very intuitive. So I would listen to what I'm hearing and being told to do. Like we had talked about it on the Instagram that I was very clairaudient, right? So I'm listening and I hear that I'm supposed to talk about the word of power. And everybody have heard the saying, okay, there are words of power. Okay. But they said, no, it's not the word of power. It is your word of power. So what your word of power represents for each person is the word that they have chosen to live this life experience through. So before you like they said, we have free will and we have choice. Yes. That's very, very true. We pick what experience we'd like to have from down to our families. Let me give you a story with how in depth choosing a particular word is, if it's your power. Okay. I had this patient that came to see me. It was August in Orlando. She was dressed in a black parka, and people that live up north know what a parka is. It's like a really heavy jacket. Yeah, yeah. So she's dressed in this black parka in August. It's like 85 degrees outside, right? She's dressed in this black parka. I get her out of the waiting room. She comes into my office. She sits down, and she's still in the black parka. She's telling me about all the things that's wrong with her. This woman had something wrong with every single system of her body. There was something wrong with her eyes. She was almost deaf. She had diabetes. She had something wrong with her kidneys. She had some heart condition. She couldn't breathe properly. Something was wrong with her lungs. Something was off with her nervous system. So you name the system, this woman had something wrong. So normally when I do a chart, there's like a little schematic of the body. And somebody will say, okay, my shoulder hurts. So I'll just make a little X and circle that area. I know that's where I'm working on. With her, I just circled the entire body. Exactly. It was like this because it was like, there's something wrong with every single part of this woman's body, which was unusual. Okay. So I said, okay, we're ready to start your treatment. And, she had to take off the coat because I'm going to use some acupuncture. So she takes off the black parka. Underneath the parka, she's wearing a sweater, a wool sweater. She takes off the wool sweater. Underneath that, she has on a vest with those brown buttons. Wool vest, she takes that off. Then she has on a dickie. I have not seen anybody wear a dickie in forever. The false turtlenecks? Yes, yes. One of those. She takes that off. Then she has on like a T-shirt, like this material, but it's long sleeve. She takes that off. And underneath that, she has a camisole. So this woman didn't only have on a parka. She had on like wool socks on her feet. She's freezing cold. So I'm working with her. We find out that the word of power that she chose to experience in this lifetime was dying. So when you're dying, your body is freezing cold. That's part of dying.
Okay.
And every single organ in her body complied with the fact because there was some kind of failure going on with every single part of her body. So
Okay.
hence she was in this process of dying.
Okay.
And when I found out, I said, this is the word of power that you chose. And she said, oh my goodness. And she told me the story that when she was a little baby, her mother didn't want her. I think her mother almost aborted her. So in utero, she was dying.
Okay.
She was born. Her mother's breast milk was like toxic to her. Like she couldn't take the breast milk.
Okay.
So she was a baby that couldn't thrive because she couldn't be fed. They tried different formulas. She couldn't take it. They took her to a pediatrician and he mixed up some kind of concoction for her and she was able to take that. So she was a baby that was dying because she couldn't thrive. That's the definition of a non-thriving infant, right? So her mother was very abusive to her. I don't want you, never. So her spirit was always dying and being with this extremely abusive mother who made her know every day she never wanted her. She left home early because she couldn't take the abuse and married this man who almost beat her to death. So another form of dying. She has a baby with this man. The little girl tried to commit suicide 4 times. So she was always in the presence of dying. So when she started to realize like, oh my God, my entire life have been lived through this whole filter, this word of power. So we all choose a particular word when we come into this life that we want to experience. And she said, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I want to live. The following week, this woman walks in. She has on a spaghetti strap tank top and a skirt and sandals. No kidding. Her body warmed up. Her eyesight started to improve. The deafness in her ears, she could hear you a little bit more clearly. Everything started to improve in her body because she made that change that, oh my God, I don't want to experience that anymore. I want to experience this. So what I learned from a lot of these clients that I have is that you could change that. So one of the things with this gentleman, it was, he chose misery as an experience. So what's more miserable than almost getting to the finish line and never making it? And he has all the advantages. He has all the connections. He has everything. Everything is set. Everything is perfect. And then he gets right there and nope.
Wow.
That's misery.
Yeah, I'd call it that.
Yeah. So we change, and I really think that because he said things started to move, but they were moving a little bit slowly, and because he's experienced this pattern over and over in his life, and we figured out that's what it was, and we started to shift that for him, and he started to shift it. Not sure whether he chose a different word yet, because yes, you can choose another word. Because nothing is set in stone. It's not like you made your bed and you have to lie in it and you have to, you have free will and you have choice. That's what that means. So you can choose something different to experience your life through rather than, and a lot of times I said we're interesting creatures because we choose very interesting things to experience. I know people choose stuff like misery, struggle, dying, abuse, martyrdom. People choose a lot of it's like a Lifetime movie, like the ones that the guy's always beating up the woman and she's going back in the house to get something and he gets her and chokes her and almost kills her. Like those movies. It's like we choose a lot of trauma and drama experience rather than, a Hallmark movie where it's like everything is, like we're bored with that stuff or something.
Yeah.
Like we're addicted to the drama on some level.
So, okay, so I got to ask you, so how do you find out somebody's word of power? How do you?
Sometimes it comes to them, what it is, because the part 4 that I did, that was when we explained what word of power was. And that's why when you heard in the beginning where some people were talking about, I think I know my word.
Yes.
That's what they meant, because that was what the talk that we did the week before.
Okay.
Was about the word of power. So if you want to go a bit more into it, I would definitely say look at that video where we talk about the word of power and what that is. Because one of the reasons why I was so excited about the fact that I was asked to talk about that specifically is because I know more than anything else, it transforms people's lives like that. When they find that, because they change it. It's like they decide, on a dime, they decide to change my entire life experience. They could change it. That's why we say it's a very fast system, because people, once they become aware, that's the way I've been living my life. And we talk about, you see these recurring themes keep happening in your life over and over. It's a different place, different time, different person. And we'll even see that when we meet our friends and they're in relationships and we say, yeah, that person looks different. They got a different name, but it's the same person.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could see that for our friends and stuff, but we notice that we have these repetitive patterns that go on in our lives, which they call themes. And in creation, we call that word of power you choose, we call it the record, because it's the record you choose to experience while you're here. But you could change your record. Everything is mutable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, man, like I said, this is why I have you on, because it fascinates me so much about your curiosity for the truth, because I think that's where I connected with you for my own journey. Because when I started, I never planned on coaching. This was my own. I'm just giving information I found on my own journey to the truth. Mm-hmm. Right? I didn't know what the truth was. I didn't care what it was, but I knew I didn't have it.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing is, that's the best place to start, Coach Lucky. Exactly what you're saying. It's like, I don't know the answer, and I'll be the first person to tell you. Like, my favorite college professor I've ever had was Dr. Newman. He was a retired engineer. He worked at R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company.
Okay, yeah.
Retired engineer from there. And our actual physics professor, something happened. I think he had to go back to India or someplace. He had an emergency, so he couldn't teach our class. So they asked Dr. Newman to come and teach our class. And, he's an engineer, so he's had physics as part of his training. So but not basic physics. And it's been a long time for this man to remember basic physics. So he comes and he teaches class. He explains who he is. He explains there's certain things I may not know, but we'll find out, and all of that. And what I admired the most about Dr. Newman, we will get to a place in the book and he's going over a certain formula exercise and he'll look at it and say, I really don't know what they're talking about there. And the fact that he was a professor that was standing in front of a college class telling you he didn't know. But then what I admired the most about Dr. Newman, he will go and by the next week he'll come back and he'll know everything there was to know about that.
Wow.
And so I always admired, like I said, he was my favorite professor. So the fact that he had the courage to stand in front of the classroom and say, I really don't know, but I will find out. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he knew how to just break down the information to the most basic terms so we could all understand it. So I always admired, I've had really, really good teachers throughout my life, but he always stood out, the fact that he would just admit he didn't know. Instead of play it off or make something up like I've seen other people try to do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's back up a little bit, because I know we talked about it weeks ago, and so I want everyone else to be able to hear it. Tell me how you got started on your journey, because you mentioned briefly your acupuncture, being an herbalist with your creation program. And when you and I spoke several weeks ago, it was just fascinating how you got started and where you came from and how you, kind of fell into kind of just, mentally kind of walking yourself through places. I think it'd be fascinating for people to hear it. So kind of, wherever you want to start, but like you said, kind of as a young girl when you were starting and
origin story of how I started. Okay. So how old was I? I think I was 18 at the time.
Yeah.
I was already a junior in college, because back in those days, if you were, instead of just going into a gifted class, they would actually skip you a grade.
Okay.
So I got skipped a grade. So that's why I was a bit younger in college than most people. So I'm already like maybe 18, 19. I'm in my junior year and I have been major surfing because I did psychology, I thought I wanted to do psychology, but then the rats was a deal breaker because they had all the little rats running through mazes and you had to handle the rats. And I was like, oh God, there's rats in here. Get me out of here. So I switched from psychology and I think I went to liberal arts. Then I switched from liberal arts to theater and dance major. And while that was my third year by now, because each year I would switch a major because I knew that wasn't really what I wanted to do. So my director for the dance department, she says, well, you were the only one that did really good. You got an A in applied kinesiology, was about the movement of dancers, like why dancers get injuries. Like you're a coach and there's certain, like you would tell one of your players, you know, if you swing, do it this way. If you move your arm, do it this way so you don't get an injury. So it was basically a class like that. It was called kinesiology. And she said, you were the only one that did good in kinesiology. And I said, yeah, something about that really clicked for me. Never had any biology, no anatomy training or anything, but something about that clicked. So she said, why don't you go and maybe dance therapy might be your thing. And I said, okay, let me go check out. And so I went to the library and I checked out a bunch of books, dance therapy, music therapy, art therapy, physical therapy. If it said therapy, I just pulled it off the shelf. And I figured, why not? She said, do something with therapy. I'll see which one suits me. And in physical therapy, they mentioned acupuncture. They said that in the state of New York, people could not, physical therapists could not do acupuncture because they had to pierce the skin, and physical therapy was non-invasive, something like that. And this light bulb just went off in my head like a little cartoon where it was like, bing, and I was like, oh, acupuncture, I want to do that. And I said the next thought was, my mom won't let me go to China. So it's like I forgot about it, right? Because I thought I have to go all the way to China to learn this thing. So then about a week later, there was this food vendor in front of our college. And I don't think they have food vendors anymore, but they used to be these guys. They would set up a folding table and they'll have like nuts and berries and all kind of little snacks and stuff. And, you know, the college students, you come out of your class, you grab something off one of these tables. They had a guy that sold falafel, you know, stuff like that. I don't think that's allowed anymore, but they used to have that. So one of the food vendors, he had this flyer, it was green and it said acupuncture on it. And I was like, oh my God, I just read about acupuncture. So it's this synchronicity started happening.
Yes.
And then it was like 3 weeks later, they were going to have these acupuncturists. He was going to have an open house because he just opened up a wellness center. So I was like, oh, this is too cool. And so I couldn't wait. I was like a kid waiting for Christmas morning. So I go to the place and it's in Harlem. So everybody looks like us. Or Latina. That's all the people that were there in Harlem at the time. And I'm sitting there, I'm waiting on the acupuncturist to come. You know, there were other speakers. I'm still waiting on the acupuncturist to show up. And then finally at the end of the day, because the event, you know, they had an end time on the event. The event's about to end. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened to the acupuncturist? These two brothers walk in. And my idea of the acupuncturist in my mind was Mr. Miyagi, like from the Karate Kid.
Karate Kid, yeah.
Walk through the door. But these two brothers walk in and they go up front. And I was really disappointed. I was like, darn, the acupuncturist did not show up because what the stereotype I had going in my head. And then they start talking about acupuncture. And it turned out that these two gentlemen, they started doing acupuncture because they were part of the Black Panther and the Black Liberation Army. The older gentleman, he was Tupac Shakur's stepdad, Matula Shakur. So that's who my first acupuncture teacher actually was. And, you know, they start talking about acupuncture and how they were trying to help people detox them off of drugs and, you know, get people off of heroin and methadone. And the reason why they were using acupuncture, because at the time, China had an opioid problem. About 95% of the Chinese men were hooked on opium. So opium was so pervasive in China that after they had the revolution, they were given a choice. It was like, stop taking opium, face the firing squad because you're useless to society, or you could go get acupuncture. And they found that by giving them acupuncture, it would block the neurotransmitter, the opioid transmitter, so they would not have what they call revision. I can't even say the word recidivism. Like they
Yes.
would go back to
Yes.
doing drugs again. So when they found this information, they actually went to China. So I didn't have to go to China. They actually
Yeah, they went.
China. They met a gentleman that they were Romanians, and they were studying in China, but they were studying the air, auricula, because they found out that they used the air to treat people and get them detox and not addicted to opium. So these gentlemen, they came back and they formed a school in Quebec, Canada, and they licensed Matulu and Dr. Delaney. They licensed them to start an acupuncture school in the Bronx and in Harlem, South Bronx. So it was Lincoln Detox Hospital. These guys, they were true gangsters. I have to say that about these guys. They were like some serious gangsters. So can you imagine you're in the hospital? They have the acupuncture units, and it's only to detox drug addicts. So the drug addicts were getting really, really well. So they said, man, could this acupuncture, my mom got arthritis, my cousin has asthma, and they were brothers. They were all about the community. So they're like, sure, bring your brother in, So all of a sudden, all these people were going to the drug detox unit and getting treated for all these other things. And the hospital said, this is not the contract. You're not supposed to be treating all these other people. But they were some tough-looking black guys, and they were like, well, the hospital got very nervous and scared of them. So they actually called in 50 of New York finest to shut down the acupuncture unit because they were intimidated by these guys.
Yeah.
They were like, this is our people, power to the people, we're going to treat our people. They were not taking no for an answer. And they were so hilarious when they told me the story. I said, so what happened? They said, well, they came, they padlocked the clinic so we couldn't get in. And when they ran out of needles, they would send somebody down to the corner store. And those thick, cute toothpicks, those real thick wooden ones?
Yeah.
They would get those and hold that on the side of your ear and put acupressure on your... these guys are dedicated. Like, we're out of needles. What can we use? Okay, toothpicks should do the trick. They were for that life. They really were.
Right.
And so they got padlocked out of the clinic. New York's finest showed up, locked them out of the clinic. And they said, man, we don't care if we get locked out of the clinic because we got this other place down here that we could bring people to. So they did that. But they said, but we need our patient files because we need to call everybody and let them know where we're at. So, like I said, they were about that life. They broke into the clinic and stole their files. Yes, they were like that.
Right. Wow.
I learned from, so they were like, they didn't take no for no answer. They went there, they got their files and got in touch with everybody and opened up in Harlem. So that's where I went to actually learn acupuncture for the first time, was from these guys. But they were really about it. They were about that life. And, a lot of people, that's what I like about the stuff that we're doing today, because you get to set your own narrative. Because a lot of people, you're from California, you're like Northern California. So, like you hear about the Black Panthers and stuff, and they got a bad rap because somebody else defined them and set their narrative for them. And most people don't know that these guys, they started program like the school breakfast program is because of them. Mm-hmm. There would be no school breakfast at all if it wasn't for the Panthers. So a lot of people don't realize that, they were told, oh, these guys are horrible, they're militant, you got to be scared of them and all of this. But they were really community advocates, and they were always trying to find solutions to problems that they saw in their communities. So that's the thing that most people don't know about them. Hence, that's why they were one of the first people to bring acupuncture into places like New York and the inner cities, was from that whole thing. Like, we got to find a solution to help our community. And they found that because heroin is an opioid also, and they looked and they said, oh, China got rid of their opium addiction. This is another opioid. It should work. So that's how that actually came about. So I learned from those guys. And I went back years later to acupuncture college in Orlando because I learned how to do acupuncture. That part was pretty straightforward, but I didn't learn about the herbs, and I was always interested in learning more about the herbs. So I went back. So I'm one of the only people I know that went and repeated acupuncture college 2 times. Because I really wanted to understand how to do herbal formulas. I felt that was a key, which which was interesting because I had to sell my whole herbal pharmacy because I thought I would be doing internal medicine because I also had a background in a bachelor's degree in nutrition science. So it was all about research and nutrition to find out, how the body breaks things down. So this curiosity, I always had to find out, well, how does something work? So nutrition science wasn't like a dietitian where I wrote a menu for you. I was actually getting into the science to see what was going on with your genetics. How was your body breaking this particular nutrient down? What cycle was being disrupted? So stuff like that. So it was almost like this more scientific approach that I've always taken to understand, how things work. So that's part of the reason I went back to acupuncture college, because I understand in that aspect of nutrition and how things were breaking down in the body and how you metabolize things. I started looking at, like, okay, what if I give the person this particular herbal formula? So I always understood it more from a biochemical point of view than anything else. That if I mix these herbs together, because I understand the biochemistry of the body and how the body works, then I would know these formulas should work like this. So it was always this very kind of analytical, scientific way of doing it, except for, like I said, those patients that just wouldn't heal. No matter what formula I changed, led me on the quest to where I am now. So that's basically how I got into a lot of the work that I did. One of my classmates, she was a spiritual healer. And so she was going through what they call a spiritual calling at the time. When I met her, when we were in acupuncture school together back in the 80s. And we wound up being good friends, and I wound up helping her a lot with a lot of the different spiritual things that she went through. So I got a glimpse of seeing what that side of the work looked like. So I always knew that except I didn't want to do what she did. That was, I avoided it. And the only reason why I avoided it, because anytime she would heal someone, she would get sick.
Oh, wow.
It was like she would like take on all their stuff into her body. They'd walk away feeling great, but then she'll be sick with whatever they had for days and weeks. So I was like, oh God, no, I do not want to do nothing like that. So if anybody ever said to me I was intuitive or spirit, I was like, no, that ain't me. Because I thought that I would have to do the things the way she was doing it. So I absolutely was like, nope, that ain't me, ain't doing it. I'm not interested in being in pain. I'm not interested in being all the time. and then so I avoided that aspect of myself until I started to realize that, I don't have to be sick and in pain in order to do that. But I thought I did for a long time. And I remember being in acupuncture school, a lot of the students, they'll go to the clinical supervisor and they'll ask them about a case and they'll say, well, use these points, do this particular technique. They'll go in the room, they'll come back and say it's not working. So they'll come and grab me, even though I was a student also, they come and grab me and say, Akyiia, come in here and take a look at this patient for me. Just tell me what you think. And I'll walk in the room and say, the needle is pointing in the wrong direction. Just turn the needle the other way. And then the patient will go, and the complexion will come back on their face. And I'll say, the needle is just pointing in the wrong direction. And they would all come on and say, you're so intuitive. How did you know? And I was like, I'm not intuitive. That is not
me. No, not me.
Not me. So it took me a while to even accept that part of myself. Because of that previous experience. And then when I, started working, I found that I had to use that particular gift of intuition, as Carolyn May, she called it medical intuition, to use that particular gift in order to help people heal.
So what is that gift?
It's the ability to see, it's a gift that's more clairaudient, clairvoyant, and all of these things. If you look at it, in most societies, they have what they call a medicine man or shaman. So that was something that every single society, there's no society that did not have a medicine man or woman or a shaman, or whether they were male or female, they all have that. And that is the person that's able to look at you. In Chinese medicine, they also had a philosophy that they took out when they westernized Chinese medicine, because they had to make it fit the Western model of science, the scientific method. So they took certain parts out of the medicine. And one of the systems that they had in the medicine was called Tong Sheng Min. It means to penetrate divine insight, or, penetrate divine illumination. That's actually what the words mean. So it means that the doctor is able to see with the person, like connect with the person in front of them and see what's really happening with that person. So it's like what the shaman would do, what the medical intuitive would do, what the medicine man would do. And I think the most interesting story that I have ever heard about that, I was doing, because I was working with this lady. She was the spiritual healer. I was working with her. I was taking an African studies class in college at the time. And I told my teacher I wanted to do something about the African medicine man and find out more. And she thought I wouldn't find any information on it. But, there was this library in Harlem. I don't know if it's still there, called the Schomburg Library. And it's a gentleman, Schomburg. He went and he collected every single type of book about the Black experience that you could imagine all over the world. So I found this book. It was written by a doctor, a medical doctor from England, I think it was. Michael Gelfand or something like that was his name. He wrote this book, and because he went around to the different tribes in South Africa to interview the medicine men, to kind of understand how they did their folk medicine. And so he was documenting all of this. So while he was documenting, there was this woman. She was dying and they didn't know what else to do for her. They had given her all the traditional medicines and everything. He was a medical doctor, so he even bought some stuff for her. Nothing was helping him. And then in walks this man, and they knew that the way he was dressed, he was from another tribe. And he walks in there and he has this gourd and he gives this medicine to this woman and she begins to recover. So the doctor wants to know, okay, you're dressed differently. You're not even from this local area. Where are you from? And this man, he said he woke up. He was a medicine man. He said he woke up one morning and he was told that he had to go to this particular village to see this woman. He said he just had this vision of her and the village. The man walked like 2.5 days to get there. Yeah, he'd never been to this village. He just saw it in a vision, that he had to go and bring this medicine to this woman, and it saved her life. So the doctor, he analyzed what was in the medicine, and he said there was something, they had like some pulverized, it was like a bird feather, and it was like this red feather. And part of what was wrong with the woman was she had a copper deficiency. And this red feather, that red orange hue, had copper in it. And she needed that, but it had to be in a certain dosage. And she began to recover. But this man, he said he just had a vision, he just listened, and he walked for a couple of days to come to this village where he's never been in his life to give this woman this medicine. So that's why I said it's really interesting. And we've had stuff like that happen in my class where I break the students down to do workshop. There was a young man. Every time we break him down into a workshop, his grandmother would, it was some message from his grandma. Grandma this, his grandmother's alive. Grandma this, grandma said to remember this, remember when you were young. And, so it was always, he was getting annoyed. He's like, nobody else have anything else to tell me but some message from my grandmother. Remember when you were a little boy, Tony. Remember this, Tony. Remember that. He actually has a video on my YouTube site that he talks about this. And his grandmother was in the hospital. She was dying. He had separated from his family. He was no longer speaking to his family. This guy, he has absolutely no internet footprint at all. He has made himself into a ghost. Like nobody could find him anywhere on the internet. His mother is an IT specialist. She does computer science. She's an IT specialist. For some reason, she was looking on her computer, searching to see if she could somehow contact him, track him down. And his name, address, phone number, everything appears on her computer. Yeah. And then she calls him and he's like shocked. He's like, and then he calls me up. He said, my mother called me. She says, my grandmother, I got to go to Fort Lauderdale. My grandmother is dying and her dying wishes to see me before she dies. And I said, maybe that's why we kept picking up your grandmother throughout this whole session. He goes down there. He sees, he tells the story, tubes everywhere, every single part of his grandmother's body. The medical doctors, nobody could figure out why this woman is dying. They said, look, we tried everything. We can't figure out what's the reason for her to be this sick and dying. All we know is that, everybody just come wish her well, because this is probably the last time you're going to see this lady. So he calls me up and he says, I said, well, just do creation on her. You just learned it. 4 days later, he took the class. This is his 4th day after taking the class. I said, Tony, just do her creation and see what happens. He does it. And then he goes back home. He said 10 days later, they said, she's not dying anymore. They put her in, she's in critical care. Nope, guess she's not dying. She's getting better. She's in rehab now. Guess she's not dying. We can send her home. So he said she was dying. And about 10 days later, this woman was in complete recovery. So it's like stuff like that. That, like you said, what is that? We could say it's the soul, it's the spirit, it's God, divine. It's like, because we ignore that part of ourselves, we don't really even have a language for it. Like a language that we could all speak back and forth. Like if I say certain terminology to an acupuncturist, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Scientifically, if I say the Krebs cycle, every scientist would know exactly what I mean. So it's like we don't really have like a very common terminology and language to talk about these things, even though we know they happen and we've experienced it or heard about it, or if we haven't experienced it, we know family members who have experienced all of these things. So that's the part that I look at, because I find that a lot of ailments and things that are affecting people is in that realm, if that makes sense. Because we've tried everything else. So you got to look someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Man, this is just fascinating to me. Fascinating.
Man from South Africa was like, and that's when I looked at intuition instead of just being like some parlor trick or, some scheme.
Yes.
I looked at it and I said, wow, that's pretty valuable.
Yes.
First time I looked at it, because before that I was like, I don't really want to do that. Who cares? Who cares if you're going to find the right man or the right woman? Just go outside. There's plenty of people out there. You'll bump into somebody, to, me to tell you whether or not, about the next person. And I felt when I was around people, or will I hit the lotto? Or, like people used to ask these questions that I used to feel that's nonsensical. Like, just play the lotto. You're either going to hit it or not, Right. But then when I saw this story about this medicine man and even this young man that took creation and was able to save his grandmother's life, then I said, this stuff is really valuable. This is the stuff that will give people hope, because it's all the stuff you read about. Whether you're reading the Bible, you're reading the sutras, it tells you that you have the ability to do this and greater stuff. And we all have it, but we don't fully believe it because we're told not to. And that's why they were saying that we were marketed fair. Not that there's no such thing as fair. If somebody's, got a weapon pointed at you or, threatening your life or the life of your loved ones, or there's fear, that's natural. Or you're told, hey, don't walk down that corner. That's a normal, natural instinct. It's actually something that helps to preserve your life. But the idea of somebody planting the seed of fear in your mind, that's why they said, oh, that's just good marketing. They have convinced you about stuff that's not real, that it's actually real. So then they said that level of fear is what keeps us from even looking to understand who we really are, what our power really is, what we are actually capable of doing. Because we're capable of much, much more than we give ourselves credit for. And what I'm telling you, just like I keep seeing, like when you see the I used to work in a machine shop in high school because I went to a technical high school. So when you're cutting metal and you have that blade, it's like a circular, like a rotary type blade.
Yes.
Just kind of nicks it at the top before you can make a groove.
Okay.
It's like we're actually just doing little nicks. We haven't even cut through nothing yet. That's how much more I feel that we have, that we're actually capable of, that we're just making little tiny nicks.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. I feel the same way. And like I said, I think that's what I've been saying. I think that's what kind of drew me to you when we had our conversation, was because I heard you talking about things that I believe, but don't know, so to speak, have never had a personal experience with, and you were talking about it. And so I felt like, I guess to your point analogously, I kind of felt like you were my medicine man, maybe metaphorically. Like it was like, oh wow, somebody who actually has performed or has seen or who understands and can put it into words what I believe, to your point, like you've been saying, that the human potential or whatever is far greater than what we're
giving ourselves. I mean,
yes.
We have like truly just dimmed and diminished ourselves so much. And it's based on that whole, be fearful of that, like the stuff that I talk about. I have some people go like, oh my God, is and I'm not knocking anybody's religion, but they're like, what do you mean spirit? I'm like,
yeah.
And I'll say, okay, and I say, oh, it's the Holy Spirit. Like I have to like qualify things.
Yes.
Because, this level of fear that have been placed
yes.
in people's minds.
Yes.
About that they have to be afraid of every single thing. If you don't say a certain word a certain way, or, and none of that is really true or doesn't matter, because the potential of who you are is great. We can accept technology. We could accept every single innovation in technology and go like, wow, that's great. But we don't accept innovation within ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we do, we're told, no, that's weird. You got to be careful of that. You don't want to open that door. But we don't go and explore exactly who we are.
Wow.
But we'll do it with a device.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you say, oh, this device, we can make it do so much. But then I'm like, who created that device?
Right.
The person whose mind created that device to do these things, they must be way more powerful than that device.
Yes.
And so people don't think about it that way, because, like people are like, well, how do you work with people? You work with people and they're in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. I said, yeah, because you're talking to me on a cell phone. You're on one side of the state. We're separated by thousands of miles. You're on one side of the country. I'm on another side of the country, but we could still communicate. We could still do all of this. Right? So what makes you think that we can't do even more than that? What makes you think we can't communicate with each other without a device? That's what I tell people. I'm saying we got to be able to do greater than the things that we actually create.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. So you were talking about herbs and helping people and things like that, and people not responding, and it just made me think of like a little side, more of a I don't want to say innocuous, but something not as dramatic as that. But it just made me think about, what is your impression or perspective on allergies?
Allergies?
Yeah.
I did a system where we eliminated allergies, and it worked rather well. Allergies could be a number of different things. There could be some cellular and genetic component to allergies that need to be addressed. And a lot of times, allergies could be more of an energetic problem. So, for instance, the system that I did, the allergy elimination system that I worked with, we would find out what the allergen was and give the person an energetic exposure to that allergen. And their body would just go weak. So it wasn't that they ingested this allergen or they were like exposed to, say, a cat or pet dander or something like that. But just by being in the presence of that, they would go weak. So like Dr. Bruce Lipton, he wrote this book called Biology of Belief.
Yes.
He took the nucleus out of the cell, but the cell still operated and functioned and did everything. And he scratched his head for like 4 years trying to figure out, why is this cell working? It's not supposed to work, right? And then he came to the conclusion that it wasn't the nucleus in the cell that was the brain of the cell. It was actually the membrane in the cell that was picking up all the different signals around it. And all these different signals that's going on in your environment around you, your body is reading those signals as, this is harmful to me. It could be a rose. It could be a pet. It could be, some dust in the air. But for whatever reason, the energy system of your body is reading that as harmful. And then you're having this overreaction of your immune system to it, because your immune system is saying, danger, danger, I got to protect myself. So then you get flooded with your histamines and phlegm and all of these things, your eyes water and all of this because your immune system's trying to fight off this danger. So what we do is quiet those energy systems down and kind of deactivate those signals. So when the person is exposed to that, they no longer react that way. So like I said, it could be cellular, where there is a genetic component, but it could also be energetic. And I find that there's a lot of energetic things, and it could also be emotional. Maybe something happened to you at the time when you got exposed. And it could be, I've seen a lot of things. I've seen people have past life memories, and then they become allergic to things.
Mm.
Yeah, I had a woman who, she was going to get nasal septum surgery. Like they were going to take out some bones in her nose to widen her septum because she had severe allergies. And she never had allergies entire life till she was like in her 40s. And when she was in her 40s, she moved from the Midwest to Florida. And if you know anything about the South, there is a certain period of time where you get blanketed by all this yellow pollen. Like everything is covered. It's like the color of my shirt. Everything is covered in this yellow looking pollen. And she was at a baseball game watching her kids play. And all of a sudden her nose got stuffed up. And so when she came to me right before she had the surgery, I said, you know what? You keep showing me this image of you World War II, like you were a soldier, and you got exposed to mustard gas, which is similar color like this. You got exposed to it. And your nostrils and your system, when it saw all that pollen everywhere, all around you, your system reacted and thought that you were still exposed. It's almost like, you had to just trigger. Because you're a mindset coach and you understand people have these triggers. So it triggered something in her to make her feel she was in danger. And I said, you know what you need to do when you go home? Just tap your nose and say, look, thank you for protecting me. We're no longer in danger. I'm fine. It's not mustard gas. The war is over. And just tap and talk to yourself. And after then, she came back the next day. She said, I could breathe just fine now. She didn't have to have the surgery and any of that. So that's why I say it could be a lot of reasons. But I find there's a lot of energetic components to allergies. Because you're reacting to stuff that's outside. And like Bruce Lipton said, you're receiving all the signals from everything. Even like, for instance, when they talk about, diseases running in families.
Yes.
It's not so much that they're genetic reason. Like maybe 20% or less of most diseases are genetic. So that means about 75 to 80% is not genetic, but they're more environmental. So the stuff that runs through families is that you think the same, you eat the same type of foods, you're exposed to the same things, you react the same way emotionally. It's like your mother worried about everything, and now you taking on this whole thing that every single thing you worry about. So they find that most diseases are more environmental. It's the signals we're picking up from around us that's creating the majority of the stuff.
Wow. Man, wow.
That's why.
Okay, so you mentioned it. Let's go there a little bit.
Change it. Yeah, that's why I'm saying someone like yourself, who's a mindset coach, could change that because it's these signals they're picking up, these cues from around them that's creating a lot of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm asking you, because I am after the truth, like you are and you were when you were a young girl, and trying to figure out like, okay, this is working, but this isn't working. What else am I not considering?
Yes.
Right. And so when somebody's asking me, I was like, to your point, if I don't know, I don't know. If I believe I know, I could still be wrong, but I'll tell you I know, meaning if I believe I know, right? But I also understand that there's so much more about us, about ourselves that we don't know, about humanity that we don't know. And so when I first was speaking to you 2 weeks ago, you said so many things that were like, oh, I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew there was more to it, but you were the first person that I've personally spoken to articulate so many beliefs that I had that I hadn't necessarily experienced or seen or could prove, but I just believed.
Yeah.
And so
you're using an intuitive gift that you have that they call clear cognizance. It's like
Okay.
I know something. I can't put my finger on how I know it, but I do know it.
Yes.
Particular, like cognizant is to know something, right? To be
Yes.
cognizant of something. So they call it clear cognizance. So you have this spiritual ability to know things, and I find that most people that have that particular gift, they usually get premonitions. They're usually like visionaries, or things will happen to them that they'll like. I knew that was going to happen, So they may have what they call more prophetic abilities, like they could tell things going to happen before it happens. So that's more of a clear cognizance ability. That's why you said, I know there's something more to it. This can't be it.
Yes.
There's part of me that tells me there's something else. So when you ask about intuitive abilities, we all have them.
Okay. That was one of my questions. Okay.
Yeah, we just use them different ways. Like mine is more clairaudient. So like I'm always thinking, I'm always analyzing. Like my brain's always going like this nonstop. So I listen because that's how I understand. So mine is like my clairaudient, this kind of listening is like I need to understand. It's this need to understand. So I'm always listening to my thoughts. So when I receive information, it's in the thought. Whereas with you, you kind of just know it. Like I can't tell you how I know, but I know, and if you do it this way, it's going to work. I can't tell you why it's going to work, but I know it's going to work. That's more. But you can't. With intuition, there's no explanation because intuition is just the truth. But it's not data, because what we're relying on is data and memory. So we're relying on logic, reason, data, and memory to back up stuff that we don't know. So we won't allow that part of ourselves to just trust. Okay, I don't know. I can't explain it to you, but trust it. And the only reason why I'm okay with it is because, after reading about that medicine man that walked for a couple of days to save this woman's life, the different things that I saw that this other healer that I knew when I was young was able to do with people. I mean, she was so accurate. She could pinpoint things. There was a man that came to her. He had a wife and 3 mistresses. He had a wife and 3 mistresses. And the difference between men and women, a woman could have the same scenario going on and nobody will know about it.
Wow.
Women know how to keep the lid on that stuff.
Okay.
You would never know that she's seeing other people unless she wants you to know. But a man, for some reason, I don't know whether it's to brag or whatever it is, all the women knew about each other. The wife knew about the other women, all the women knew about each other. So this guy couldn't keep it secret. So he started having like really horrible stomach pains. So he actually came to my friend to see if one of the women was putting something in his food or poisoning him because he goes to all their houses and eating. And he's wondering, who should I not eat from? That was really his question because
that's really what he wanted to know.
Because I have bad pain. I'm going to the doctor. They can't find out anything wrong with me. The fact that she had some medical background, she was able to tell him, you need to go to the doctor. They need to take this specific test. And right in your intestine, she described the exact location. You have a hole. It's a little perforation. There's a little hole there. And when you eat your food, the fluid from one part of the intestines get mixed with the next, like your acids and your base. And, it's just getting mixed together and it's creating this pain. But you've gone to the doctor and they've taken a look, but they can't see it with the test they did. You got to take this specific test. And he did that. They found the hole exactly in the spot that she told him it would be. He had the surgery and he was fine. So nobody was poisoning him, but they all knew about each other. That was like, I always thought that was funny. I'm like, can't keep a secret. How you going to let everybody know about everybody?
Right.
But men do that. You can't seem to keep, it's not even keeping it in your pants. It just keep your mouth too.
Yeah, you can't do either one. Yeah. You can't do either one.
I've known women that have been in relationships for 25, 30 years and nobody knows about it.
Wow.
Women, that's your wife. She'll tell you like, I know some women like that.
Really?
Yeah, they could take that stuff to the grave. That's
wow.
It's true. I'm like women. If they're women are going on the download.
What is the difference between like men and women? I don't know. Maybe on that level or just in general. What's the difference?
Like I think it's just society because men are congratulated for stuff like that. Women are not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shame, and if you think about it, like women, they'll say slut, whore. They'll say different words for women. What is the equivalent word for men? None.
Nothing.
Exactly. So
or nothing that we care about. Nothing.
You don't have to.
It ain't gonna stop us. Whatever the word is, ain't gonna stop me.
Right on the back
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. Right on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's
okay.
the difference, is that men don't have to keep it secret.
Okay. You said something. You said past lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've the only person I've really heard talk about that to real extent that I've listened to is Dolores Cannon.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah, she's
yes.
amazing. Yeah, I love.
So, what is your thing on that? What is your?
I always caveat it to say that I have yet to meet anyone who's a brand new soul. If you think about it, if our soul, our spirit is eternal, we would be bored if we're just floating on a cloud playing a harp.
Yeah.
Because we would have more interest. So I do know that we, just the same way we come here and we choose these particular bodies, we choose our families, we choose the culture, the society. Oh, and talk about the caveat, the lady that was dying.
Yes.
She even told me she grew up in the town that made Agent Orange. Yeah, so she even had the environment of dying around her. That's how deep this gets.
Dang.
So we choose. So the fact that we can choose these things, we could come here, we could create innovations, we could do all of these things. I feel that as a eternal soul, eternal spirit, that we will be actually bored if all we were doing was playing harps and floating on a cloud forever and forever and forever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why I do see that people do come and they have these past lives. And people have lived multiple. I've seen people live multiple past lives. And it's not so much that I was a king, I was a queen of Sheba, I was the king of Siam, or whatever. That's not the important thing. What I find that's important about the past lives is how that life impacts this life. So let's say you went through an experience that maybe it was a financial experience. Maybe you were killed because you were very, very rich. And so the person may have an aversion to money in this life.
Mm.
And they don't know why they have such a strong, if I get money, I can't have, I won't allow myself to go over a certain ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Is because there is some triggered memory about, last time I had a lot of money, it didn't work out so well. So people have these memories, but they can't explain why they have these memories or certain reactions, because the past life comes up in this life because you're trying to resolve that issue. That's the only reason my past life is important to this life, if that makes sense. So clinically,
yes.
That's the reason why I see past lives come up, because there's something that you are trying to resolve that has happened that, like in certain religions, they talk about karma, that if you don't experience it now, you'll have the karma later on. So it's not just that you're having a karma because you were this horrible person, you did horrible things, so now horrible things are happening to you. No, it's some conflict that you still haven't resolved. There was this cause and effect. So because you live on eternally, you have plenty of time to work things out.
Yeah, you ain't got nothing but time.
Yeah, you got all the time in the world. You got endless time. So you're like, okay, and the other thing that's very interesting that I have found is that not only do we have past life, we come back together in what I call like a soul group. Like, okay, your mother may have been your brother, your father may have been your daughter, you used to be your father's mother. I find people have these configurations that they come back as a group together because and it's always because they're trying to resolve a conflict. I know Dolores Cannon speaks about the groups that come back together, and I find that extremely common in the work that I do. And then some people are like, I never want to ever come back with that group again, which that's ridiculous. I've had that. Yeah, people are like, whatever. I just want to make it clear that never ever again.
For the record. For the record.
I do not ever want to be with these people ever again. And some people choose that. Yeah. I've had some people make a really strong declaration, like, no way. I'm not going to come back and play this game with these group of people ever again.
Wow.
So we switch up the roles because it's like, okay, last time you were the mother, it didn't work out, so let's just switch up the roles and see. You know, it's like playing a chess game or something, and then you just keep moving the pieces around and changing. You know, you were the pawn, now you're a rook, that kind of deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So I definitely would be remiss if I did not ask you this. So if we have any type of, like you talk about, you know, innate skills, clairaudience, clairvoyance, whatever you said, I forgot, or sounds like I have, whatever.
Yeah.
How do you, how do you develop that, you know, so that to do the job you want to do?
Okay. The first thing that I always tell people is just pay attention, because everybody has these skills. You know, it was like the talk that I had. They said, intuition, we think that intuition means these senses. We're all, just like you have your 5 senses, you have all these other clear senses, these extra senses. We all have them.
Okay.
You know, like sometimes you'll have a dream and you say, you know what, I had a dream about so-and-so the other day. And all of a sudden something happens and it's exactly what you dreamt about.
Okay, yes.
And people have experienced this thing. It's the same way, like some people, like grandma passes away and then the person said, you know what? I didn't even know grandma had passed away, but I saw grandma in my room around such and such time, and that was the time she passed away.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Those experiences. People tell you, I have this, you know, like grandma stopped by and said goodbye or something. You know, so it's not unusual. We all have these experiences, but we just don't pay attention to them. We've either been taught to be afraid of them, or we've been taught that, you know, that's just your imagination. It's not real. You know, little kids are always coming up. I'm sure when your daughter was small, she'll come and tell you things she was seeing or hearing or experiencing. And then you're just like, oh, that's just your imagination. That's what we're taught. So we're taught not to pay attention to it. We're taught not to utilize it. And it's like, you know, you're a coach and you said, if you don't use a certain muscle, what happens to it?
It dies.
It dies. It gets atrophied. So we have all these abilities, but they're in a state of atrophy because we don't use them, because we've been taught not to believe them. They're not real, and all of these things. And that's the reason why. It's not that, because when I teach people, when I do an intuitive workshop with people, and I teach people, okay, you've got a person that lives in another city. You know, this is their name. They live in Boston, Massachusetts. And I want you to tune into their energy and just take out a piece of paper and write down every single impression you have of that person. And these people are very accurate, even though they've never done that before. All I'm teaching them is just tap into that part of yourself and pay attention, because you're receiving the information. You know, like sometimes, you know, like, how do you know something is going on with your daughter if you didn't get a phone call? But then there's this sense like, I got to check on my daughter. Something's going on with her. That's your intuition that's telling you that. We all have it.
Okay.
You see, but we just have taught not to pay it any attention. And that's the first thing I tell people. Just start paying attention to it. And then you see more. And then the confirmation that you actually get from other people. Like, people tell you, yeah, how did you know? You know, and that's how you start to use it, and you start to trust it, because it's a confirmation.
Okay.
And the other thing about intuition is that when you get it, you say, no way, that can't be right. And the reason why it's no way it can't be right, because it's their story, not your story.
Okay, that's right. I remember you saying.
And you might think, no, that sounds way, way off. And then you look at them and you say, you get the courage and you ask them about it. And then all of a sudden they go like, yeah, exactly. They could relate to it, because their story is what they're going through. So a lot of times you don't trust what you're getting because it doesn't make any logical sense to you. But intuition is not logical. It's the truth.
Yeah.
But it's not logical because it's not based on memory or data that you already have.
Okay. So I know
I just want to ask you, you've had moments when you've had intuitive hits, when you just knew things and you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
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 And that's all I'm saying. Just start paying attention to it, using it more and more.
Okay.
It's like building a muscle, working a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And right now we say you seem like you're more claircognizant, but then all of a sudden you start to see things. Because people used to say, "Oh, I can't see nothing," but they'll describe this whole scene to me, and I'm like, "Okay, you just described this thing. You must be seeing it if you're describing it." And they're like,
Right.
"Oh yeah, I did see that, but I can't really see anything." I'm telling you, people are funny.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't really see anything. Yeah, I saw I saw this man, and he was so tall. He had on a green jacket, and he was standing there, and he picked up this corn, and I'm like, "But you're describing. You must be seeing it.
Right.
You're describing something that's very visual." But I can't see anything. I got clairvoyance. That's how people are.
Wow.
It's like this, what cognitive dissonance, that you might be doing it, but you can't believe you're doing it because you're told that it's impossible to do, or it's only special people could do it, which isn't true. Everybody has that ability.
Oh,
So when you start using the one that's strongest for you, the other ones start coming online. Then you're knowing, you're seeing, you're hearing, you're tasting, you're smelling. They all come online because all of a sudden you start using them, and they're like, "Oh, we're doing this now." So your system just kind of, it just kind of flows. So it's not as hard as people make it out to be.
Okay. Wow, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you said it several times now. You've talked about your program creation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
As far as
oh my goodness, creation is. I would definitely say it's the accumulation of almost every single thing that I've done and studied, and then some. Creation is making me learn how much I really don't know. It's like for 40 years, it's like, yeah, I have a lot of information, but it's how much I don't know, because I did a course, because normally I did creation. It was one-on-one with individual clients and patients. And then I started to get this hit. We started thinking about, well, what about the healer? Most healers, most caretakers, they don't take care of themselves. So it actually thought it out as this idea that let's heal the healer. So, and I said, could we do it in a format where, because they're all healers, could we do it in a format where we could do like a group healing for them? And then, then it came like, well, everybody could use it, not just healers. So I opened it up, and I had a group when I was in Orlando, in Claremont. We had a group of people that I met, and I told them what I did. I told them I did acupuncture and creation and the type of work that I do with people, and they were interested. And they say, "Yeah, could you come and do something for our group?" And I said, "Well, I have this thing that I want to do, a group creation called Creation 100. Because as a coach, it takes up to maybe 90 to 100 days for someone to change a habit and form a new habit." So that's how it became called Creation 100. So we did 100 days. They committed. They showed up. It was like maybe 13 weeks. How much is 100 days? I think it's something like, is it like 13 weeks? It's like two and a quarter months or something.
Yes.
Yeah. So we did the program for the complete 100 days. They showed up once a week for that. And then people started noticing things start to change in their lives. Now, I had no idea whether it would work in a group, because I've always done it one-on-one. We didn't know what the effects would be. So people asked for very basic things, like, I need a new car. I need to put some money. I need more money. I need more clients. So it was very basic, ordinary things that they asked for. So after we did the group and people did receive the things that they asked for, I said, you know what? They didn't ask for big enough things. Hence the creation for manifesting miracles. Because I'm like, do a big ask. If you could have anything that you want in this universe, right? And we're calling it a miracle, just means like it happens real fast. You don't know how it happens, but it happens. Why don't you just ask for the biggest thing you can imagine? So big it might frighten you. And then see what happens. And creation is about clearing the energy, anything that stands between you and this thing that you desire or would love to have. We clear up any block, like the gentleman that got the money, got those, and then the other account came. So it was just clearing up whatever was standing between him and it, and clearing up his whole programming around misery, clearing all of that up. And then whatever is in front of you, like they say, it's right there. It's right in front of you. There's nothing that you imagine that you'd want in this life that's not right in front of you. And when I'm working with people, I see, I'm like, well, whatever it is, I can tell you what it is because I can see it. It's right in front of you.
Wow.
And people don't believe because they put all these barriers and obstacles because they think it's too hard, or I can't have that, or they have whatever belief systems or whatever. Like you said, you coach people and you see people have all these blocks that they put. It's just imaginary stuff, but they put it there, and that becomes more real than the thing that they desire.
Yes.
Or they don't feel, if I get it, then what? Then I have this response. I don't know if I can handle it. Like people have all this stuff going on. So what creation does, clear up all the obstacles, all the objections you could have to whatever it says, the type of life you said you'd like to have. We clear that up, and then the people start living those lives. But the main function of creation is really to get people on their path and their purpose. That's the ultimate function, is because you're here to do something. You're here to shine your light brightly in the world. And so that's why it was funny, because when it hit me that, oh, that's why they call it creation. They say, yeah, if it was about clearing, we would have just called it clearing. It's about what you're here to create, what you're here to do.
Yeah.
But to get all the stuff out of your way, like wipe that slate clean so that you can create clearly, with clarity, and with ease. That's what it's really all about.
If I wanted to find out what my power word was, could I do that?
Yes.
How would I do? How would somebody do that?
Okay, so look at the patterns that have been happening.
I think I know it.
Okay, all right, yeah, because sometimes people know it, and you're very.
I had one. I've never thought about it before. I literally had one word came up, and I know I didn't think of that word.
And I could tell by the way you're looking, because your whole face just lit up, like your aura just went like, woof. You got the word. So, we got to talk about that offline, because I think I might need some help. And when you look at your life through that lens,
word,
then your life all of a sudden makes sense. You go like, oh my God.
And it did.
This scenario, and then that, and then, oh my God, everything lines up perfectly with that word.
It does, I think.
Mm-hmm. I could see it. I could see it in your face, because your whole aura just went, boop. You got like, and all of a sudden it's like,
it did.
What this word is.
So what is, and so what is that? Because like I said, we have to talk about this offline, because I got to call you tomorrow. I got to do something, because you got to help me. I need some help, some help.
Yeah.
So what is that word? What is that word? So tell me, so what does that word mean to a person? What is, you're saying that's the word you're living under, kind of like that's your North Star, or is it?
That's the word that you chose, that word, because, like I said, your spirit's eternal.
Yes.
So we're thinking beings. We're beings that like to do things and create. We're creators.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's better for a creator than to throw a problem or challenge at them and say, okay, let me work through that and see what I come up with. So I really believe that's part of the reason why we choose these really challenging words to live by.
Yeah. Because I know I never thought
I could fix this thing. Just send me back in there, coach, and
put me in, coach.
I'm going to show people how this works. I'm going to, and we do that as beings. It might be entertaining for us. It might be challenging for us. We like things that we have to have this pressure to push against. So there's something about our spirit that likes those things. But what they told us was that time is over and done with. All this, like a travel agency, like, okay, this is going to be my itinerary next time around. I will do this and this. This will be my word. And these are the experiences that I will choose to have. And these are the people that's going to come with me to do it with me. And, and they're like, no, that time is over. Those were experiences. Now it's time for you to know what it is for you to serve, right? Humanity, as well as what serves you. So the word that you choose going forward, once you clear that other word out and all the stuff attached to it, you start looking at it, okay, now what word truly serves me and will serve humanity? And they say humanity could be, the way you take care of plants. Humanity could be how you, take care of as a man. How do I protect and provide and do the things for my family and set the example for my generations to come? That could be humanity. Humanity could be how you impact the entire world. Humanity could be how you work with animals. Humanity could mean different things for different people because we all came here with different missions. But that mission that you came on, it's time to do that service. So they say, yeah, the word that you choose from here on is a word. Like I could describe what my word was. And people wouldn't believe that knowing me and listening to me that this would be my word. But my word was modest.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why I would know things, but when I was a little kid, kids are honest and they'll just say,
oh, I remember hearing that.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So when I picked modest, I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I just was like, oh, man, I said that to that person. And the look on their face, like when you got your word, your whole face brightened up. So I would be very in tune to how people felt. Even though I wasn't overly emotional, I would say, man, I feel bad. I feel guilty. I hurt that person. And I probably shouldn't have said that. So I start to really measure my words. And then I realized I would sit someplace and I'm listening and I'm like, that person have no idea what they're talking about, but I won't say anything because I don't want to blow up their spot. You get what I'm saying. So I'll just stay very modest or stay in the background. And people usually had to beg me to say stuff. Because I'll be like, no, I ain't got nothing to say. No, I'll just stay back here. Don't pay me no attention. So that was the modesty. But that doesn't serve me or serve anybody else. So the word that I got, and I just got it 2 days ago, because it was like 10 days since I got the word modest. And I said, it'll come to you. The right word will come to you. It was authority. And my first reaction to authority was, like, oh, authority. Because I'm a child of the 60s and the 70s. My teachers were from the Black.
Yeah, you don't want to hear that word, yeah.
He was like, I don't want to be the man and the authority.
Yeah.
It was like that was my idea of authority. So I actually went and looked that word up in the etymology dictionary. And when they explained the word, the origin of the word, and what the word literally really mean, I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. But it was like that, the way we use the word in today's
connotatively. Yes.
This context that we use it in is like, oh, no, that's not a good thing to have authority. But then,
what does that word mean?
It means like influence based on your reputation to teach or to master something. Like all the things that you said that impressed me about you. That is what the word mean. It was like such a long definition. It's like being the author of your life, being authentic about something. Like all of those are root words that's attached to authority. So it's like how you create something, how you generate something, how you teach it, how you master it, how you do all of these things. But it's really, you have authority not because you're bossing people around or trying to rule over people or oppress people. There's nothing in the original definition about those things. It literally means that your reputation is what creates the influence that people would follow what you're saying.
Oh.
So I said, okay, I could rock with authority.
Yeah.
But it was just different. It was just like, wow. And I said, so looking at it that way, because my whole thing was like, I didn't want to say things to people and hurt their feelings or, be a jerk to people. And sometimes the stuff that runs through my mind is like, oh, don't say that out loud. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that word would serve me better as well as do the mission that I've been sent to do, to serve.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, man, this is
And it was
Woo, woo.
the opposite of modest. You get what I'm saying? It's not like
Yes.
I'm modest, so now I'm going to be flamboyant. It's not like the opposite word to it. Because some people think, oh, you got to, like the lady had dying, she chose living. I'm like, well, living would be appropriate because everything in her
Yeah,
body
literally.
agreeing with dying. So she had to do something
Yeah.
else. But it's not always the opposite word. It could be something else.
Yes.
So yeah, so your word. So we definitely, yeah, your wife has my phone number, and just text me and we'll set up a call.
No, no.
Yeah,
I'm going to be doing that.
yeah. I'm expecting you to. I know you're on a mission. You're
Yeah, no, I'm fast and furious. I'm all over it.
yeah.
I will be contacting you tomorrow.
Good.
For sure.
I actually have some opening. I have a couple of people that switch some stuff around, so that works.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll definitely reach out to you tomorrow morning, your time, because I get up early. So, text you, and then you can, we'll figure something out.
And I know your wife's usually on the call, so if you want to do it after that, that's fine.
Oh, yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, because she's usually on the call in the morning, so after we get off that call, if you want to call me after that, that's great.
Okay. Oh, okay. I will do that.
Yeah, that works.
I will do that. I will do that because I go out and I go take my daughter to school, and that's a whole nother thing. But so yeah, I'll do that. I will give you a call tomorrow after the call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Well, this was just so awesome. So last thing before I let you go. So I see you doing your things on Sundays, with your creation, and I got to hear some of it myself. And, I think it would be super amazing for people to be able to get a part of that class, because from what I heard, it's something. I remember seeing a couple of the ladies talking about their word and your response to them, and you talking to different people. And I just think one of the things I got from that in a short amount of time was kind of something you had said, to me, previously, which was kind of just giving people the room and the space to talk, and to listen to them, and then to allow them to think and to talk, to talk themselves through, or, out of, into, whatever that.
People, it's weird with our society, because people really don't have conversations with other people anymore, hardly ever. People, the whole thought of, well, you have that point of view. Let me hear your point of view. Let me tell you mine. Let's, chop it up, go back and forth. Like, people don't even want to do anything like that anymore. So that intimacy of the conversation and just hearing someone else out, and it's just something about that has been lost in our society, and it's necessary. It's really necessary for people to be seen and heard. And like literally, I remember my daughter. She was a teenager, and we took her out for her birthday to the restaurant, and this was what all the kids were doing.
Yes.
Yeah, like nobody interacts with anybody anymore. So
yes.
That is almost becoming like a lost art. And
yes.
One of the things that the different guides that have shown up, and they said they don't like to be called that. Progenitors of creation that showed up, they said, this is not about you. This is not about all the stuff that to demonstrate that to people. This is about them. This is about the people that are showing up. This is their platform. This is for them. So it's necessary for them to be able to speak, to express themselves, to share, to do what they need to do. Because this is about them finding out more about who they are. And you standing there talking for the whole time is not going to help them do that. They have to be able to, they have to actually take that action to speak up and ask questions and share their thoughts and, give their opinions. And all of that is really necessary, because nobody talks. People just yell at each other. Or I have my side, you have my side. I don't want to hear about your side. I have my own news, you have your own news. It's like crazy, that whole communication. I mean, we have a system, that's the paradox. We have a system that's supposedly to help us communicate better. or more easily with each other, but we refuse to communicate with each other
Yes.
at the same time.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's kind of,
And it's so funny you said that because, like, just imagine, like, we're facing each other right now, but just imagine I was literally on your right side.
yeah.
So I was walking into a restaurant and I saw some high school kids, and it was two girls that were at a table, you know, and one was sitting and they're facing each other, like you and I are facing each other, but they were at a table, a little square table, just big enough for them too. And they were literally like, she was leaning this way and the other girl was leaning this way. So they were like literally just leaning past each other. Mm-hmm. And they were sitting there texting. They were both like this at the table with food right in front of them.
Yeah.
And they were literally this close.
Each other. They won't even talk to each other. They'll text.
And they might have been.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I was like, why would you guys are this close and you're texting people? I'm assuming that whoever they're texting weren't even there. But
the level of intimacy have been lost.
Yes.
The level of humanness,
yes.
That level that connects us all together, that
yes.
get to know each other, that connects our heart, that sense that we all crave.
Yes.
Totally lost. And they said, no, it's not about you talking to Akyiia. We know you can talk. It's
yes.
about them. It's about the people that
yes.
are showing up. This is for them. This is not for you to show them how brilliant you are, but
yes.
For them. And so, so that's part of the reasons why I have people talking. Anybody that wants to see them, it's on, all the videos live on YouTube. We do have a Facebook group, and it's just my first and last name. So if you want to go on my YouTube channel, it's just that. My name is the YouTube channel. And people could look at any of the videos that they want to watch there. And, you know, and I've told people the other thing is that even if you're not in the class, the session still is perpetual. Those sessions will go on into perpetuity. So when I think you had left before I did the actual session itself.
Yes, yes.
Those sessions will last forever. It doesn't matter when you do it. And I had one of the ladies said, man, as soon as you started the session, I fell asleep. So she said, I was so glad you had it up on YouTube. I decided to turn it on. I went to the part where you start doing the session, and the same thing happened again. I was out. I was gone. And right. It's really an interesting thing. I was laughing. I said, me too. I was trying to listen to it because I wanted to hear what I said. And the same thing happened to me. But the reason why you go out, because I remember I told you, the lady told me that people look like they're sleeping, but they're not sleeping.
Yes.
They're in a trance, and they go into this different state where things are easily transmuted for them. So things are shifting and changing. So even like you asked about the gentleman that's receiving that money short.
Yes, yes.
You know, like he's like, yeah, he said, like, almost like somebody anesthetized me or something. I'm out. You know, so that means you're no longer your brain, who basically is like in a corporation like risk management, say, no, we won't do that, because that's what your brain is there for. No, last time, fool, you almost killed yourself. We're not doing that again. Or you have kids, you know, like you give them busy stuff to do so they can fall asleep and leave you alone so you can act.
Yeah.
Yeah, your brain kind of does that to us. Because the brain is not a change agent. So, you know, like you can't think your way to change, because that's not the function of your brain. Your brain is to help you survive, help you remember things, help you learn things, and help coordinate the functions of your body.
Okay.
Those are the things that your brain does well, and that's its job. Okay. But to just keep changing things up, no, that's what the brain's like, no, that's crazy. I don't keep changing things up. So when people say they kind of go into a sleep, or I just fell out, I didn't even hear the rest of what you said, is because it's like they have to get that conscious mind out of the way.
Yes.
So that you can actually make those changes happen.
Yes.
Because your brain's like, no, we're not doing that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. No, I definitely get it. Well, I'm going to get your number, and then I'm going to text you, so that way you can have my number and you can call me when you get off the call. Okay. That way I don't interrupt you. So that way, if you want to, you know, transition and stuff like that.
Perfect.
And then, you know, I want to make sure I tell you now, though, but just let me know, you know, I'll send you my number tonight, but then just text me and let me know, because I do want to make sure I do want to pay you for your time, because this is important to me. No, like I got some, like I want to know. Yeah, I need some help.
I will help you with that. That's my pleasure to do that. And you're here to help a lot of people, Coach Lucky. So I just like, hey, my mission is to, like I was told that you take people here and you bring them over here. Then you go back and
Yes.
get another step, take them here and bring them over here. So
Yes.
that's been one of the things I was described that I had to do when I was very young. It never made sense to me, but now I start doing this work. It makes sense because my mission is to get people on their path. Like
Yes.
whatever you're here to do, we're going to clear up everything that's stopping you, because that's the work.
Yes.
Okay, let's clear it all up so you could do exactly what you came to do. And
Yes.
you know what happens when you are on your purpose and you're feeling fulfilled? Your diseases go away, all that extra stress, all that other stuff, it just disappears. Because you're in harmony, like they say, you follow the Tao, you follow your path, you're in harmony.
Yes.
You have good health, prosperity, everything just flows towards you because you're on your path. You're doing exactly what you came here to do.
Yes.
And
well, that is wonderful. I mean, this is, I guess, what they say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
That's so true. And I've had many appear in my life too. So I'm happy to be there like that for people at this stage of my life. Yeah.
Well, it's wonderful. Like I said, I'm gonna reach out to you, and then just let me know, and then after that way you let me know, and then after, when it's over, I'll just Venmo you or whatever. But I definitely want to make sure. I want you to know that I want to pay you for your time, because I appreciate your time.
Just block off a couple of hours.
Okay, yeah, because I probably, it'll be about 6:00 my time, and then I have to pick my daughter up at 7:45 my time, about an hour. So probably about an hour and a half. Somewhere in there.
Okay, yeah. So we'll know we can adjust it, and if we have to cover something a little bit later, we can. All right.
Okay. So yeah, okay. Well, I just thank you. I appreciate it so much. One more time, give people your contact information just in case they want to reach out to you for these classes, information, acupuncture, herbalism, all the stuff you do, and just everything.
The way people could reach me is that my Facebook as well as the YouTube channel is my first and last name. So Akyiia Azula would be the easiest way for them to get in touch with me that way. And if they go on Facebook, they could get the actual class when the class is happening. And we've got a way to get the Zoom link in there. But we always do on Sundays, not a Facebook, I'm sorry. We do a Zoom class and we do a YouTube live simultaneously. So they could watch it there, but they could always go on YouTube and look at any of the classes. And if they need to reach out, I do always answer comments. So if people leave a comment or something, I will answer that, and they can get in touch with me that way too.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate all the wisdom and just the information and just thought-provoking wisdom, information, and things to help us all grow by.
Yeah.
And that's what this whole Lanes of Mastery is about.
Thank you. And one of my goals is that I want to make this as commonplace that people start to realize, I have these abilities, I have these powers within me. And because there's so much more.
Yes.
So if let's say you just start using your intuition and you're able to get clear insight into different things, imagine what else more you're able to do.
Man, that's why I'm calling you tomorrow.
I want it to be more of a commonplace thing because, people just don't realize it, that they have those powers and those abilities and they're natural to them. It's just you're born.
Yes.
It's not something, because people say, how are you able to teach people intuition in a couple of days? And I was like, because they already have it. I just, allow them to see it and, help them to, reveal it to themselves. And then all of a sudden they realize, wow, I didn't realize I could do that. It's as straightforward as that. Just like you're a coach, you might see someone have a specific talent in sports and things, and then you just say, well, just try this and try it this way, and then all of a sudden they go like, oh my God, I didn't realize I could do this. It's the same thing. You do it physically, I just do it with them, with their energy and their intuition.
Wow. Well, this is wonderful. This is even always better than I even think.
Hearing from you, Lucky.
Oh, like I said, I'm about to, as soon as it's over, I'll be texting you, and you call me as soon as you're off. I will be ready.
You take care now.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.